there are three common myths about the Internet. That is that the Internet is public, that it has no borders, and that it has no center. These are all false. The Internet is not public because it's privately owned infrastructure in an unregulated environment. The Internet is not borderless, although it appears that we can communicate transparently across continents. But in fact, borders are built into the protocol. In fact, what makes the Internet able to exchange traffic is a protocol called Border Gateway Protocol, or BGP. Border Gateway Protocol. And every switch, every router where a network interconnects with another one is a border. And the firewalls are the customs police that decide which packets can pass or not. So it's a very selective and very controlled process. And if you look at a map of the Internet, it, in my description, is a loose confederation of corporate nation-states who control private infrastructure. And they exchange the traffic only because they agree to, not because they're required to. So therefore, at each corporate boundary, at each corporate firewall that of the network backbone providers is a border. The third myth is that there is no center. There is a center, at least as it is in operation today, and that's the root domain. The root domain is the center of the Internet, which is essential to routing or directing traffic based on the use of the domain name system. And this essential facility, the root server, the A root server, because it's set up in a hierarchical delegation of authority, in a master-slave relationship. Sound like colonialism somehow? Hierarchical delegation of authority is a military model. Centralized command and control is a military model. So the fact that people have a perception that the Internet has no center and has no borders is only that. It's a perception. It's not a reality. And in fact, the centralized command and control through the root domain is a way of soft switching traffic on and off. For example, the root file, root zone file. The root zone file is a text file, ASCII text. To make an entry of a domain or to delete an entry of the domain is a matter of text editing. You could do it with no technical experience. The fact that the company or the entities that control that have very, very strong ties to the U.S. government. They're basically Pentagon contractors, or SAIC, for example, who owned Network Solutions at the time of the inception of the NAME.SPACE lawsuit, was basically their board of directors. If you were to enter one of their board meetings, you would make the mistaken impression that you've entered the retirement club of the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, the CIA, etc. Because their board of directors contained the former chiefs of the CIA, NSA, the FBI, or other government agencies, generals, people like Melvin Laird, who was the Secretary of Defense during the Vietnam War, or Bobby Ray Inman, who was the Chief of Naval Intelligence while George Bush Sr. was the head of the CIA. Donald Hicks, Robert Gates, former head of the CIA. These were basically the ones who were in control of the Internet. So SAIC, if you were to look at their corporate profile, their largest customers, they're a private company, privately held. So there's no public disclosure of their finances or anything else because they're not traded on the stock market. Their largest clients are the National Security Agency, the Pentagon, and the IRS, and a handful of other large corporations, Bechtel or something like this. So what does that tell you is that we have basically the private spooks with their hand on the control point of the Internet. Now, it's not only a matter of control, because if you understand operation of root and top-level domain servers, it's also, in my opinion, potentially a key technical point for the functioning of Echelon. Echelon being the so-called global surveillance system. Because what it enables you to do, if you were to watch the traffic queries on a root domain server or a top-level domain server, you see high-level traffic transaction for every email message, every web hit that's done, virtually all over the internet. So that's a high-level way you can get a behavioral snapshot of who's talking to whom.